Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Damascus Radio, and it's time for World News for tonight, read jointly by Khalid Sakhbani and Basim Bagdash. Iran criticized the European countries which offer support for the armed terrorist groups in Syria, asserting that Syria's future is determined by its people. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister for International Affairs Mohammad Mehdi Akhundzada said that only the people lead their countries, adding that it is illogical to speculate the developments of the crisis in Syria or to talk about the future of this country afar from the Syrian people. Spain and Jordan confirmed the importance of reaching a political solution to the crisis in Syria to stop the violence and maintain the security and the unity of its territories and ensure the participation of all components of the Syrian people in the political process. The foreign ministers of the two countries, the Jordanian Nasser Joudeh and the Spanish José Margallo, stressed during their meeting in Amman on the importance of continuing coordination and consultation and communication between the two countries regarding various issues in the region, especially the situation in Syria and other issues of common interest. The two sides also discussed the latest developments in Syria and its humanitarian repercussions on Jordan, in addition to the latest developments in the Middle East. UN envoy to Syria, Lakhdar Ibrahimi, briefed the UN Security Council on his mission in Syria. Following the session, Ibrahimi said that no changes occurred with regard to his mission, referring that the Council was serious in supporting this mission. He warned that the Syrian crisis is the most dangerous crisis confronting the world. Ibrahimi denied rumors that he would resign after feeling disappointed due to the Arab League and the UN Security Council's failure to find a solution to the crisis in Syria. He said that he did not resign, but every day he thinks about the necessity of his resignation. In turn, some diplomats who attended the closed Security Council session said that the reason behind Ibrahimi's attempt to dissociate himself from the Arab League was the Arab League's decision taken last month, which recognized the Syrian opposition. Khalid?
Thank you, Basim. Terrorists fired rocket-propelled grenades at the residential buildings of Al-Dahara neighborhood in Artuz in Damascus's countryside. The terrorist attack caused injuries among the citizens and large damages to the houses in the public areas. Units of the Syrian Arab Army have killed several terrorists, including an Iraqi, who were committing sabotage acts against the people in the Babila area of Damascus's countryside. The army also destroyed a factory for manufacturing explosive devices in El Bueda village. Meanwhile, about 50 terrorists were arrested in an ambush that was set up by the units in El Hassaniya village in Damascus's countryside. The Syrian Arab Army have restored the security and the stability to the villages and the towns of Al-Qadish and Al-Mansuriyah, in addition to Al-Radwaniyah and Al-Saadiyah in Al-Qasir's countryside, which is in Homs, and the units of the armed forces also targeted several sites in Homs countryside, inflicting heavy losses upon them and destroying their criminal tools. Units of the armed forces then targeted gatherings in Al-Ashtar neighborhood, which is in Al-Rastad, killing a number of terrorists. The armed forces also destroyed a vehicle equipped with a heavy machine gun with all the terrorists inside it in Al-Ghassabiyeh and in Al-Dar al-Kbiri, which is in Hummus's countryside. A unit of the armed forces then targeted the gatherings in Idlib's countryside, inflicting heavy losses upon them and destroying their criminal tools. A military source said that the units of the armed forces targeted terrorists in Benish in Idlib's countryside, killing and injuring a number of terrorists and destroying 2 cars equipped with heavy machine guns. In Aleppo, 2 children were wounded as a result of the mortar shells that were launched by terrorists in Al-Jamiliyeh neighborhood. The shells also caused heavy material damages to the nearby buildings in the area. In Deir ez-Zor, the Syrian Arab Army units destroyed several cars equipped with machine guns and armored vehicles near the Jbeliye neighborhood and Al-Siyasiyeh bridge, killing the terrorists inside them. In Al-Hasakeh, the people of Al-Sukkariya neighborhood have intercepted terrorist attempts to break into their village, and they killed and wounded several of them. Back to you, Basim.
Thank you, Khalid. Tunisian Minister of the Interior, Lutfi bin Jiddo, has revealed that the networks which send Tunisian youths to fight alongside armed terrorist groups in Syria have been dismantled. In an interview with Tunisia's Maghreb newspaper published on Friday, bin Jiddo said that many of these networks have been uncovered and the people involved in sending youths to Syria have been arrested and imprisoned, adding that investigations into these networks are continuing. He said that some of these networks seek to make financial profit out of these youths, while others are Salafi networks that believe in the need to partake in jihad in Syria, adding that it is difficult to narrow down the number of Tunisians who went to Syria, because many of them sneak out of the country, but if and when they return to Tunisia, they are charged and put under security surveillance. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Alexander Lukashevich has said that the U.S. plans to send 200 soldiers to Jordan in relation to the crisis in Syria, contradicts the political commitments in the Geneva statement. Lukashevich told reporters in Moscow yesterday these measures are incompatible with the political commitments and the stances which were agreed upon by all the main foreign parties active in settling the crisis in Syria in Geneva last year. He said Russia calls upon all its Western and regional partners to drop these dangerous practices and move towards meeting those political commitments adopted by all of us with regard to finding a solution to the crisis. Lukashevich warned that boosting the U.S. military presence in Jordan could lead to deepening the crisis in Syria, which is taking catastrophic regional dimensions, saying these moves are not the ones now required to get Syria out of the crisis. Back to you, Khalid.
Thank you, Basim. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has affirmed that Russia and Egypt oppose any foreign interference in Syria's internal affairs and that they call for stopping the violence as soon as possible. In a press conference with his Egyptian counterpart, Mohamed Morsi held in the Russian city of Sochi yesterday, Putin said that the countries agreed upon the need for a political and a legal solution for the crisis in Syria without any foreign interference. Putin also stressed that the Russian country and Egypt are calling for the end of the violence in Syria and launching a dialogue among all of the Syrian sides. The NATO Secretary General Andros Vagromosin has said that the NATO has no plans to enforce a no-fly zone over the parts of Syria to protect Turkey, ruling out the change in the stance on Syria, which says that the solution should be a political one. Speaking at a monthly press conference yesterday, Vagromosin added that the NATO's mission in Turkey aims at protecting the citizens against any potential missile shelling from the Syrian side, which is the reason behind deploying the NATO's Patriot missiles. He also affirmed that the NATO has no other plans and nothing, however, has been secured. He also said that our ally, quote, is the only NATO obligations in the case of this escalation. Back to you, Basim.
Thank you, Khalid. The Palestinian People's Committee for Defending Syria held a mass rally in the village of Kfar Nami near Ramallah in the West Bank. The participants asserted complete solidarity with the Syrian people, its army and leadership in confrontation of the aggression launched against Syria and the Arab nation as a whole. The speakers affirmed that the Palestinian people will always stand in support of Syria, which has always been supporting their just cause. A huge crowd of Palestinians from the 1948 occupied Arab territories and from the occupied Golan took part in the rally. Iraqis cast ballots in regional elections amid tight security measures, marking the country's first vote since the U.S. military withdrawal. Voting is taking place at more than 5,300 polling centers for members of provincial councils who will serve in 12 of Iraq's 18 governorates. Thousands of candidates from 50 electoral blocks are running for 378 positions. In an attempt to create chaos and eliminate the elections, terrorists detonated 2 explosive devices near Al-Latifiyah to the south of Iraq, causing the wounding of several citizens. Security cordons have been set up around polling places and only authorized vehicles are allowed on the streets in major cities. 82 persons are reported injured in clashes which erupted in Cairo and Alexandria between the Muslim Brotherhood, who organized provocative demonstrations under the banner purging the judiciary, and demonstrators from different opposition torrents and parties. Details are in this following report.
Against the backdrop of the crisis between the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and the judiciary system, the Muslim Brotherhood has organized provocative demonstrations under the banner purifying the judiciary, resulting in clashes with opposition trends and parties. Eyewitnesses said the clashes erupted after the Muslim Brotherhood supporters had walked towards Tahrir Square while the opposition demonstrators were already there. The two sides clashed in Abdul Mun'am Riyad Square, which is located midway between the High Court and Tahrir Square, which resulted in injuring dozens of people. The preacher of Cairo's Tahrir Square, Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah Nasser, called on the Egyptian people to alienate themselves from the Muslim Brotherhood, pointing out that the brothers want to drag people into battles with the judiciary and the army. On his part, the Imam and the preacher of Omar Makram Mosque, Sheikh Madhar Shaheen, has warned of a judiciary massacre under pretext of purifying the judiciary to expel corrupted elements, pointing out that purifying the judiciary does not imply dismantling the judiciary system entirely, as this would get Egypt into a dark tunnel and change it into a jungle. Meanwhile, the head of Egypt's Judge Club, Councillor Ahmad Azand, has warned that the demonstrations called for by the Brotherhood Guidance Office to purify the judiciary aims at getting the Brotherhood into the judicial institution by converting it into a Brotherhood's judiciary, or else the ruling regime's judiciary. This event comes at a time the Shura Council, dominated by the Islamists and is currently the legislature, discusses a bill to reduce the judges' retirement age from 70 to 60 years. In this respect, some judges say that the Islamists are working on issuing such a bill to get rid of some opposition judges who are over 60 now, including the former Attorney General. This clashes comes at a time Egypt has been suffering from a political crisis for 5 months now, accompanying by several economic crises due to decline in tourism and foreign investments.
And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the elected president in Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro, was sworn in as the president, succeeding the late President Hugo Chavez. Maduro pledged in his inaugural speech to follow up the footsteps of the late President Hugo Chavez and to continue the revolution and the fight against poverty. He also called on the opposition leaders to open a dialogue and to build a home for the just future for all. The inauguration ceremony was attended by thousands of supporters of the new president. It was also attended by a number of presidents, including the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the Cuban President Raúl Castro, and the Bolivian President Evo Morales.
With that last item, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude our news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us.